Oblivion Remastered has a bevy of changes that were made to it across almost every facet of the game. New icons, quest changes, bug fixes, stats brought in, all the downloadable content, everything was tweaked in some way or another. In this video today, I want to go through an exhaustive list of every single change that happened in Oblivion Remastered. Just as a bit of transparency, this list is ever growing and changing as we discover more and more things that have changed, but now that we're about like 10 days out from the actual launch, we have a good idea. But in my typical fashion of upfronting the knowledge of my videos, let me give you some of the big ones that have changed, and let me also link you to the resource that I'm using in the description below. So you can skip watching this entire video and just look at that if you want to read this. But here's some big ones in case you haven't started playing yet. Health, fatigue, and magicka all now restore out of combat. Leveling is done via both your major and minor skills. There is a bug right now, though, where they both contribute at the same rate, but their minor skills should be contributing 12.5% less experience to your overall level. On that same note, leveling up now grants you 12 points to allocate to a max of 3 attributes. The most you can put into one attribute is 5, with the exception of luck. You can spend 4 points to put 1 point into luck. Scroll duplication has been fixed. You can no longer do it. Lots of Daedric and quest items have had their scaling or effects fixed. The Remastered includes all of the downloadable plugins that were released with the game throughout its life cycle, with the Deluxe Edition adding 2 new sets of armor tied to quests. Character creation now locks different stats of gender by a new origin mechanic. Fatigue no longer affects your melee damage based off of the amount you have left. There are now FOV, or field of view, sliders for both first and third person. You can sprint. Almost all the skills that had their perks, or almost all their skills have had their perks redesigned to be better or have a stronger quality of life. Lastly, agility affects short swords and daggers rather than strength, allowing you to focus on stealth archer builds in one stat direction rather than having to split it into strength. That's honestly the too long didn't watch this entire video. Those are the big standout spark notes that you can really digest and decide if you want to go forward with Oblivion Remastered or not. But if that's all you wanted to know, please feel free to shut the video down. I want to be respectful of your time. You can also go ahead and jump forward to any part of this video that interests you the most using the chapters about the timeline and the description. Also, if you are heading out and you found the information in this video helpful, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. And if you've not yet picked up Oblivion Remastered, you can use my link to Fanatical in the description below. You'll get a 17% discount, and I get something like a 4% commission, which goes towards my mini Aussies toy fund. But let's get started here on all the changes that have occurred in Oblivion Remastered. So for this entire video, I'm going to be using the UESP wiki. This has been around since like 1994. I remember using this website back when I was playing Morrowind and printing out pages of it. So it's a pretty reliable source. A lot of what they do, they pull directly from the source code. Now, just as a point of clarification too, it's not an infallible source. Old Knight, who is another YouTuber that has been doing Oblivion content forever, has already kind of debunked some of the things here. And it's not necessarily that he's debunked it, it's that it's proven that it has been bugged. So I will point those out if they are relevant. And I've also, like I said, linked it below. So if you want to just read it, by all means, go ahead and go. And one last thing, there will be a slight spoiler for the main story quest at one point in this. It's in the biggest section of the video. And it just kind of has to do with 2 characters that will fight. So if you've already played the game, then don't worry about it. If you're brand new to the game, just know ahead of time, I will let you know. But we're going to start with combat, and there's a lot to go through. So I'm just going to read pretty much verbatim, give you a little bit of information and background as we go through this. So first off here is health. So health now regenerates outside of combat just as it does in Skyrim. The rate of regeneration is determined by the player's endurance. There is a new formula for calculating health. Total health is now equal to 2/3 of strength plus 4/3 of endurance plus 1/10 of endurance per level. Don't get caught in the weeds of that in the whole entire equation right there, but it's worth noting now that endurance affects you retroactively. It used to be that you'd have to wait until a certain point to maximize your endurance to get the most out of your health pool. You don't need to do that anymore. The endurance per level up always rounds down to the nearest 10. This effectively means each point of endurance is twice as valuable toward a player's health as strength. But again, do it however you want. Combat itself has been overhauled. It's been changed. This probably would have been in the too long didn't watch if I was a smart YouTuber, but instead I'm just me. So combat is an overhaul, and the player can no longer attack opponents with infinite swings. So you don't just spam left click. You will attack in a series of combinations, and every single weapon has a different combination set. The difficulty slider has been removed in favor of explicit difficulty settings: Master, Expert, Adept, and Apprentice, and Novice from highest to lowest. It's worth noting here, Master and Expert are overtuned. Master, for example, enemies do 6 times the damage. You do 1/6 of the damage. So an expert, I think it's 3x and 1/3. I don't remember the equation there, but it's really brutal. So right now, I wouldn't touch these two unless you're sadistic. I'm hoping they release some sort of patch that brings them into, I don't know, not in line, but at least has a proper difficulty scaling. You truly need to be an actual master of you need to be really into exploits if you want to play master, is really what I'm trying to say. Another big thing here too is if you do play on master and expert, you will theoretically earn more experience. Not by a virtue of the difficulty, but by the virtue of the fact that everything is effectively now a damage sponge. So you're doing more swings on those things, thus giving you more experience, thus leveling you up faster. Well, theoretically faster, right? Like did I just use theoretically 3 times in the same paragraph right there? Cool. What a great person I am. Great. Both my college degrees are going to work right there. But regardless, what I'm saying here is it will effectively give you more experience per monster you kill because you have to swing on them more. Hit reactions have been added, with opponents animating differently depending on which part of their body was struck by an attack, meaning they'll reel back, they'll react differently depending on where you hit them. The player can no longer randomly become staggered while blocking. It now only occurs when blocking with your fatigue fully depleted, which is a huge quality of life improvement because I never understood how it worked when I was younger. New visual and sound effects have been added to make combat more immersive and dynamic. Like, for example, if you're attacking with a dagger, you'll attack you'll slash down, you'll stab forward, then you'll reverse your grip into a supinated grip and stab into them. Like, there's a whole bunch of really cool effects and a little bit of flair when it comes to actually attacking things now. Now, with melee, each melee weapon type now has its own moveset with unique animations as well as combo attacks with finishing moves, like I was saying earlier. The original movement-based combo power attacks earned from skill perks have been removed or adapted as part of the new moveset, meaning if I'm using a blade and I go to step to the side and do a power attack, my character will do that shuffle to the side and slash that they did before. That used to be a perk. Now it's just how your character moves when you're doing directional based power attacks. So at journeyman rank, blade and blunt weapons power attacks now apply weakness to normal weapons and a shield respectively, meaning blade does the weakness and blunt does the shield. It's a 15% shield. At expert rank, blade and blunt weapons now have a chance to apply bleed and silence respectively. So again, blade does bleed, blunt does silence. At expert rank, blocking with shields now have a bash ability to stagger opponents, which I don't remember if that was in the game before. I think it was either in Master or I'm getting my brain confused with Skyrim, which has been the wild spiral staircase that has been happening to me the entire time I'm playing this goddamn game, but whatever. In addition to this, the range of most melee weapons has been reduced. So you won't have that situation where you're able to, basically, if you can see someone's feet, you'll probably be able to miss. So it used to be if you could see someone's feet and you had like a 2-handed weapon, you could probably hit them. Now most weapons are you have to almost be right on top of them, within touch range of a touch spell. So for range now, this is a pretty big one. And again, maybe I should have put this in the too long didn't watch, but whatever. Projectile speed has been increased. All bows have had their damage increased. I don't know if stealth is on here in this section, but stealth damage for bows has been changed as well. Almost all arrows, save for the arrow of extrication, have had their damage increased. The exact damage values can be found at ammunition subpage. So if I go over here, it'll tell me all those. Projectile rigidity has been changed. Arrows are always able to be recovered from corpses. It used to be 50%, rather than having a 50% chance of breaking like in the original version. Arrows shot at skeletons now stick to the model and can be looted from the corpses instead of bouncing off after hitting and landing on the floor, which used to piss me off, but it made sense. A new setting for aim assist has been added, but it can only be used when using a controller, and opening a container with the bow drawn now cancels the attack and returns the arrow to the quiver. Not too crucial, not too big. Let me see if it's in here. Okay. Well, stealth damage for bows no longer has ridiculous scaling. I believe it only does 1 and 2 damage. And it's somewhere in these notes. We'll discover it again. I've gone through these things like so many times now that I've lost them, so I apologize. But it's a big thing right now where range damage, the stealth archer has been, it's been nerfed in that it's not just a god build. You used to be able to play stealth archer and just the whole game became trivialized as soon as you got your stealth up and as soon as you got your bow up. So now it's been changed that you do like 1 or 2x damage. I think 3x at the most. We'll find it later in these notes. But the bows now do more damage as a whole. So you're not going to gib things and destroy them outright, but you will probably have a better time as a stealth archer versus just kind of all builds, all roads lead to stealth archer. And then you're just like, okay, cool. I guess I'm playing the same damn one I played when I was like 15. But now into magic. Spells can no longer be cast while blocking. Sheathing a bound weapon no longer dispels it, which is nice. As the player is still unable to change weapon while spells lasts, this means the only way to get rid of a bound weapon prior to effect running out is the usage of a dispel effect. They added a new clairvoyant spell, which is just like it is in Skyrim. It will give you a direction towards your current objective. Telekinesis spells can now move corpses as well as still living enemies that have been paralyzed or collapsed. This used to not be a thing. You used to only be able to use it on items, but now we can do it on pretty much any stationary mobile or humanoid or creature, right? So now you have a little bit more access to things. The birth sign for Lord no longer sucks. So it's been changed to grant a 15% shield and a 15% magic resist constant effect instead of the Blood of the North, lesser power, and Trollkin ability. Trollkin, I think, was minus 15 or 30% fire resistance. It hurt you, so it was not awesome. Magicka regeneration is now a flat value per second determined by your willpower rather than a percentage of your max magicka. So if you are familiar with the original game, you know exactly what I just said meant that if you increased your intelligence, you actually increased your magicka regeneration. They've removed that from the equation. So increasing your magicka no longer affects your magicka regeneration in any way. So if you played a high elf or a Breton, and then you went with, let's just say apprentice or Atronach or mage, and then jacked your intelligence up, you would have stupid fast magicka regeneration. It's not like that anymore. It's only based off of your willpower solely. So that's the most important part of that. Stats, damage for daggers and short swords is now determined by agility rather than strength. This means that if you're playing that stealth archer or any kind of stealth build that wants to focus primarily on agility, you can do agility and use daggers and swords and have it contribute to your damage rather than having to split your time into strength. Strength is still valuable because that's, as you saw, that's how you get hit points. It's how you get carry capacity, so it's still quite valuable. Fatigue is no longer tied with damage calculation directly, instead disallowing power attacking with low fatigue. So meaning it used to be that the lower your fatigue was, the less damage you did at certain breakpoints meaning certain percentages left of your fatigue would result in a damage reduction. Now, you just can't do power attacks if your fatigue is too low, if you don't have enough fatigue to do one, but your damage won't go down. Many creatures have had their fatigue reduced as well, so it's actually quite easy to knock a creature down through their fatigue dropping. It's pretty fun, actually. Several creatures have had their health and damage adjusted. Several weapons have had their reach and damage slightly modified. And Fortify Strength over 100 increases damage dealt with the Shield Bash ability, and Willpower over 100 increases magicka regeneration rate. There is a funky thing in the computation for this game where the majority of skills and stats don't give you many benefits over 100. Some things get benefits. Athletics, acrobatics, and I want to say it's mercantile, all give benefits over 100. But if I have 150 blade and 100 blade, as far as the damage calculation goes, for the skill portion of it, it doesn't matter. So there's certain things that are a little funky that Remastered is either not touched or touched. So it's worth bringing that up. For locomotion, which is basically moving, the player can now sprint, just as in Skyrim. Sprinting rapidly consumes fatigue, but perks for the athletic skill have been changed to reduce fatigue consumptions while sprinting. Also note here, we might find it in the notes, but athletic skill gains faster if you are sprinting. The dodge ability is now a dash instead of a roll, and is unlocked at apprentice rank instead of journeyman. So for those of you that wanted to do backflips and roll to the side, it is now a dash. General player locomotion has been overhauled. The player moves faster than in the original game, and velocity is applied to their movement, causing it to accelerate and decelerate. This is especially pronounced when swimming, where it is now noticeably harder to stop or change direction. It's also, I don't know if it says it in here. It doesn't. Okay, it doesn't. So when you're jumping, even off a small little jump, you can get hurt pretty bad. Not even hurt pretty bad, but you will get hurt quicker than you would have in original because you have such increased velocity. Acrobatics now mitigates your fall damage, which you'll find in a little bit, rather than having to get it all the way to master. So we'll talk about that in a sec. Inertia is applied when moving uphill, slowing the movement. A buoyancy system has been implemented, making the surface of water apply resistance to the player as they immerse into water. Which before, if you played EverQuest, you know what I'm talking about when you just jump into water and you move freely. So now it's trying to say that like your act of actually going underwater is a bit slower because you actually are buoyant and you'll actually have to resist against your own, the gravity's pushing you up. I don't know. I'm not a botanist. I know that's not it either. Okay. Clearly not a scientist. The player no longer gradually slides down steep slopes and ledges. Jumping consumes less fatigue than it did in the original game, which kind of makes it easier to cheese your acrobatics. You can no longer jump or dodge. If doing so would consume more fatigue than you have. It used to be able that you could just redline yourself all the way down to no fatigue and just keep jumping as soon as it went back up to 1. And you'd just be able to do that rapid fire. You can no longer do that. The acrobatic skill is much more effective at reducing fall damage, even without taking its master perk into account. So having higher acrobatics naturally will decrease your fall damage. Enemy movement speed has been reduced to add more weight to combat movement, and horses have had their movement speed increased. Overall, combat feels very tight, and it doesn't feel overly new, but it feels... I think if I were to play OG Oblivion, after having played years now of Skyrim and Fallout 76 and Fallout 4 and Starfield, I always say Starfall, Starfield, I think if I had gone back to OG Oblivion, it would have been jolting. So I think this refresh to the combat is a nice step to help anyone coming to the game for the first time actually feel like they're playing somewhat of an updated combat system versus this spam left click as fast as you can to kill something. The actual combo system feels a little bit nicer, feels like it has a little bit more impact when you do swings. So that's all of our combat. Let's jump on to our next subject. This one isn't really important, but it just shows you that they've also gone through and refreshed some of the icons. So just to kind of just quickly scrub through this, it's not going to make an effect on your play style. It's just kind of nice to know that they've also given a treatment to some of the icons that were really terrible, like Great Welkin Stones over here. Sigil Stones, I was like, man, these are always really rough looking. So it's nice to see that they look a little bit cleaner, a little bit nicer. And that's just a quick little one I wanted to show off. So if you were playing the game originally, you remember all the downloadable content that was accessible through Oblivion. Either was FLC or free loadable content, I guess you could call it, and DLC, downloadable content, something that you had to pay for. Horse Armor Pack being notoriously one of the first big DLCs on a major level. But in the Oblivion Remastered, we get all this. So just to quickly look at it, we get the Horse Armor Pack, the Orrery, the Wizard's Tower, Thieves' Den, Mehrunes Razor, the Vile Lair, Spell Tomes, Knights of the Nine, Shivering Isles, and the Fighter's Stronghold. I just wanted to talk about this because we're talking about all the things that have changed. And if you were to boot up OG Oblivion, I think now you actually get these things. I think now you download the Anniversary Edition or whatever the hell, but I just wanted to show that you do get access to all of this stuff as it is pertained within Oblivion Remastered. Now, the quests have also had a little bit of tooling here as well. A lot of this too is going to be in the next section, because the next section is going to be our largest section where we really jump into a lot of things. But for the Deluxe Edition, we get 2 new sets of quests for Order equipment and Cataclysm equipment. So if you decided to buy the Deluxe Edition, I think it was $10 more, you'll get access to these Order equipment and Cataclysm. So either themed after Akatosh or Mehrunes Dagon. I said like James Bond, like Dagon, Mehrunes Dagon. Okay, so for now, the changes here. The tutorial has additional messaging guiding you through various different mechanics, including how to use the new Clairvoyance spell. Several messages now pop up in the corner of the screen, increase instead of as a prompt that you must close. So the onboarding, quote unquote, of a new player is a little bit better, but it's still not that good. I strongly encourage you to look up many, many, many resources of information, including this website. Quests from downloadable content no longer all begin at once the moment you leave the Imperial Prison Sewer following the tutorial. So why that is so important, and if you're brand new to the game, you might not understand why that's important. Basically, a lot of quests are leveled the second that you get them or that they activate. And the downloadable stuff, this is very true of. This prevents you from having to worry about all these downloadable quests activating and they all leveled to the lowest possible level, meaning you get the lowest possible iteration of all the items in them. It's not working like that. Instead, they are all started by visiting their respective locations. New rumor dialogue has been added to help guide you to these destinations, though the rumors can only be heard from characters using new voice types. So if you don't know where they are, you're brand new, you'll get some sort of direction, but only from specific characters. And the key to Frostcrag Spire is now obtained from a chest found at a campsite near the tower. I think it was in a dungeon before, I can't remember. The Fingers of the Mountain quest has been renamed to the Coral Recommendation. So if you have Coral Recommendation and you're an OG vet, this is what you're actually doing, is the Fingers of the Mountain. And then it'll eventually evolve into Finger Me on the Mountain Part 2. I know what I just said, despite there no longer being a first part. Following the map, portion of the Lifting the Veil quest has been removed, and instead a quest marker is placed at the entrance of Serpent's Trail, which was always something that pissed me off. The Bloodworm Helm and the Necromancer's Amulet can now be found in the Archmage's nightstand following the completion of Confront the King. The Necromancer's Amulet, however, is bugged and may sometimes not appear in the container. I think the way around that is before you complete the quest, make a hard save and then go immediately to the nightstand and see if it's there. It's the only thing I can recommend. There's nothing here that tells me otherwise. You can no longer have both the Breville recommendation and Through a Nightmare Darkly activate at the same time. This would otherwise cause issues with the latter quest. Through a Nightmare Darkly is one that actually activates at Breville. So you'll do it at Breville before you do the recommendation. And the game prevents you from doing it. So it's not too big of a thing. If you knew about it, now you know why that's fixed. But those are all the minor quest things. Let's go into the massive list of a lot of the bigger changes. So before we get into the biggest section, we'll talk probably about the most important one, and it's the leveling. This has been changed across the board. So the leveling system has been overhauled to resolve problems that occurred under the original game system. All skills now contribute to increasing the player's character level, just as in Skyrim. However, minor skills provide 12.5% less experience, making major skills the fastest way to level up. As of right now, as the recording of this video, that is currently bugged and they both contribute the same amount. This will hopefully be fixed very quickly. Attribute increases no longer are determined by the specific skills the player has raised. Instead, a new system is implemented. When the player levels up, they are given 12 virtues to distribute among their attributes to increase them. Each virtue assigned to an attribute increases it by a single point. However, luck requires 4 virtues to increase by a single point. Up to 5 virtues can be assigned to a single attribute, and only up to 3 different attributes can be increased per level. Luck can only be increased by 1 per level up. Endurance attribute increases now applied retroactively to health gain when leveling. We talked about this before. Enemy scaling as the player increases their level has been adjusted. I don't know the actual metrics, but it has been adjusted. Multiple skills now level up based on the magnitude of performed actions other than the number of those actions that are performed. So Mercantile is a perfect example. Mercantile experience gain is determined by the price of items sold instead of being a flat rate for every single item sold. So if you were selling a single arrow that you used to do in the OG one at a time, that would get you a ton of mercantile experience. It's now based off of the price versus an individual flat individual fee. Athletics experience is gained more rapidly when sprinting. Magic schools such as Resto, Destruction, Mysticism, Illusion, Alteration, and Conjuration now have their experience correlate with the base magicka price of the spell cast, meaning more expensive spells now advance the skill level faster and preventing the strategy of casting the lowest level magicka spell on repeat. Speedy leveling involves, I don't want to talk about that. That's just an exploit. Perks. Perks have been overhauled with certain skills now having completely different perks, and other perks having their perks move to different ranks. So starting off here with Armorer, they can now repair magic items. This used to be Journeyman, and that happens at Apprentice. Journeyman repair hammers last twice as long. That was an Apprentice perk. So those two just got swapped, which is a really, really nice quality of life. For Athletics, regenerates fatigue 25% more slowly, regenerates fatigue at a normal rate, consumes 30% less fatigue when sprinting, consumes 60% less fatigue while sprinting, and no longer consumes any fatigue while sprinting, all through Novice, Apprentice, and Expert and Master. Novice, Apprentice, Journeyman, Expert, Master. There we go. Blade no longer has any perks at Novice, but power attacks deal 20% more damage and weapons are 20% more durable. Applies a 15% weakness to normal weapons for 5 seconds at Journeyman. Expert gives a 20% to make the target bleed. Master is a 30% weakness to normal weapons for 10 seconds. They don't stack. It's just an improvement. So it's a 30%, not a 45 if you do it. So it's 30% weakness to normal weapons. Block now, shields and weapons lose durability when blocking. Shields and weapons no longer lose durability when blocking. Journeyman consumes less fatigue when blocking, consumes 50% less fatigue when blocking, and now you can do a shield bash. And Master, 75% less fatigue. You can do a 150% more damage shield bash now. For Blunt, same thing, nothing for Novice, just like Blade. Your power attacks deal 20% more damage, and your weapons are 20% more durable. You now get a 15% shield. Regular attacks have a 20% chance to apply silence, and Master now gives your power attacks give you a 30% shield, which is awesome for 10 seconds too. Hand-to-hand attacks now deal fatigue damage equal to 50% of health damage. They cannot recoil opponents when blocking. Power attacks deal 20% more damage and can now always recoil opponents when blocking. So you block and they recoil. Power attacks have a 25% chance to disarm. Expert attacks fatigue damage 75 and then attacks 100% fatigue damage. So hand-to-hand monk is now a pretty cool, viable way to play. For our magic skill, alchemy recognizes a first property, a second property, a third, and a fourth property through novice all the way to expert. But there's also additional things. Novice can only handle 4 simultaneous potion effects, 25% chance to craft an additional potion, and can handle 6 simultaneous potion effects and always craft an additional potion all the way up to expert. Then master can make potions from a single ingredient, no change, and can handle 10 simultaneous potion effects. So it can really make a super cool potion. Stealth skills no longer have any perks, can dodge at novice. Apprentice can dodge by pressing block and jump while moving. Journeyman consumes less fatigue when jumping. Expert, I'm sorry, this is for acrobatics, not stealth. Expert can jump over the surface of water. This was master before. Now master consumes 75% less fatigue when jumping and take 50% less fall damage. For marksman, expert and master have been changed to have a 10 and a 25% paralyze, respectively. Mercantile, always sell items as they were in perfect condition, no change there. But merchants offer better items. Journeymen buy and sell items to any vendor, even if they usually do not barter that type of wares, which is lovely. But now that's no change there, by the way. Merchants can offer even better items. You can invest in a shop, nothing new there. But additionally, all the shops in the world always have 500 more gold available for barter. And then buy and sell items for base cost, no change, but merchants offer their best gear. For security, up to 4 tumblers fall when you fail and break a lockpick. And this just basically scales from 4 to 3 to 2 to only 1. So this, it said used to drop all, used to keep 1, used to keep 2, used to keep 3. So basically it's just kind of reversed. Into sneak here, sneak attack with a dagger deals 5 times more damage. Sneak attack with bows, one-handed weapons, and bare hands deal 2 times more damage. So daggers now deal more damage with sneak. Everything else does less damage. Sneak attacks with dagger deal 8x. Sneak attacks with bow, one-handed, and bare hands do 3x. And expert, harder to detect bright environments. Those are your changes there. And lastly, speechcraft no longer has any perks at novice, but loses disposition 50% less rapidly when trying to persuade a character. Was journeyman before, and journeyman is instead gain a free rotation of the wedge when trying to persuade. So those two have been swapped as I smack the microphone. And then you can see here, bribes cost 50% less. That was the master perk. Now the master perk is disposition doesn't decrease over time when trying to persuade a character. Disposition is also impacted by the most disliked action. So a lot of quality of life buffs here. Sneak is the biggest kind of quote unquote nerf because it relies on you to do daggers to do most of your sneak damage, which I actually don't like. I like that it was a wide range of things could do your sneak damage, but it just means that your stealth archer is no longer as powerful as it was before. So this is like the parent article for everything we've gone through so far, right? We talked about combat, icon, leveling, and quest changes. So this is the big one. And through it, we're going to go through the bug fixes. I'm not going to talk about many of the bugs introduced. I will talk about one big one, and it has to do with the Oblivion gates. By and large, we're going to talk about gameplay, interface, controls, graphics, audio, technical, and out of game. So those are the things I'm going to focus on outside of that, the bugs fix portion. So for the bugs fix, you can no longer do scroll duplication, and items can no longer be repaired over 100% durability by using a custom spell to fortify armorer by 100 points or 1 second. So you basically would be able to, in the past, never touch your armorer skill, fortify your armorer skill by 100 points, quickly open up your menu before it fades, and then repair everything over 100% durability. You just can't do that anymore. So if you relied on that in the past, you no longer can do it. The Mace of Molech Balls Absorb Strength enchantment now lasts 10 seconds instead of 0, which I never understood why it was like that. It was probably just a typo in the code. The base ring of Steelskin now has a resist normal weapons enchantment like the other Steelskin rings. The leveled effects of Mind and Body Ring are now assigned to the conventional order, and the leveled effects of the Amulet of Interrogation are now assigned in the conventional order. I believe that this would mess up and give you the wrong tierage of item based off of your level. The Bloodworm's Helm Essence Drain spell now correctly levels with the item level. Never Shatter now correctly applies weakness to shock. The Necromancer's Amulet now scales to the player instead of Karyanya, which we complete that quest, right? Then you get the amulet. Well, it would have a chance to scale off of her rather than you, so that would cause an issue. The Spectre Ring is now correctly owned and purchased from Hamloft Redtooth, which would be my name if I owned a metal band. The Ogma Infinium Path of Spirit now correctly increases willpower. If you don't know what the I think it's actually Oma, right? Oma Infinium. It is a Daedric quest item. The red wave now has leveled damage and durability. However, its enchantment is unchanged. I think this is a treasure quest item. My infinite knowledge is so great that I don't know if I'm right. Quests. The max soul level in the unique quest Black Soul Gem encountered during the Cheydinhal recommendation now have their max soul level set to none, ensuring the player cannot fill them with souls and then use, preventing themselves from completing the quest. So this would oftentimes bug out and you would just have this quest ad infinitum because you just had it, you had filled it with something. Calthar no longer has a key when he's alive. Instead, it only spawns on his body once he is dead. As the player is unable to pickpocket the key, they must defeat Calthar in order to leave Fort Blue Blood. So the Leyawiin recommendation quest can no longer be soft locked. This is for the maid recommendation quest for Leyawiin, in case you're wondering. The painting of Charis Valga will now appear in Countess Ariana Valga's private chambers if Canvas the Castle is completed by turning in the correct culprit. I don't remember what quest that one's for. Bitneld and Emfrid now function as intended instead of skipping directly to the conclusion. Namira's Daedra quest now correctly awards a fame point upon successful completion. Affairs of a Wizard now correctly awards an infamy point. Remember, a certain level of infamy can shut off some quests and vice versa for fame. I think, but very few ones for fame. All of these characters, master trainers and NPCs needed for quests for marksman destruction, alteration, and acrobatics training, respectively, are all set essential from the start of the game to ensure that the related quest can no longer be started when the characters are already dead. Notably, there's a check in the script to verify their quests haven't been completed before that is done. However, as no script exists to remove their essential status afterward, they remain essential for the rest of the game. So that's a mouthful and that's a little convoluted, but hopefully it's basically saying that are all set essential from the start of the game to ensure that the related quests can no longer be started when the characters are already dead. So if it just ensures that they make it to the point where you get the quest, but it doesn't guarantee that they remain after. All right, here it is. Stop right now if you have not beat the game. I don't want to spoil this last little portion of something that goes down. If you have gone ahead and beat the game, you can just jump ahead to the next chapter, which is around like 34 minutes or so. The fight sequence between Akatosh and Maedhrin's Dagon at the end of Light of the Dragonfires has changed and the main theme plays during it. Visuals. The Weapon Bane Kyrios no longer occupies the tail equipment slot. Same thing with the Mountaineer's Shield. Thadil's balls are no longer missing a texture, as one would hope. All these things and the 3 crumpled pieces of paper now correctly display scroll background when read as opposed to a book to match their appearance in icon and world mesh. The Mace of Doom now correctly displays the icon for an ebony mace instead of no icon. However, as the item is inaccessible during normal gameplay, this fix is impossible to observe without the use of console commands. Lots of text corrections, lots of things that are kind of a little bit more minor, but paintbrushes are now affected by gravity, in case you really cared. The Fighter's Stronghold download no longer causes the Mystic Emporium to become locked during the daytime, which is funky. Learning a spell from a spell tome no longer plays the sound of casting that spell. Hill the Tall is now correctly an alteration trainer instead of illusion, which matches the NPC dialogue. Killing Saradur at the end of the Order of the Virtuous Blood quest without letting him monologue first no longer counts as a murder. Lord Viticus now correctly leaves vampiric dust on his corpse. Most upgrade papers for the house maintain their non-zero value until you finish bartering. It's basically to prevent an exploit or an issue. See this right here. This prevents an issue where immediately selling the upgrade papers after having bought them from the merchant prevented the new upgrades from ever appearing in the house with the ability to purchase them back, as no cost items given to the merchant do not appear in the merchant sell list. So you don't have to worry about that, because it just basically meant if you bought a house and you try to upgrade and try to like game it a little bit, it would just kind of bug out. Black Rock Chest in Black Rock Caverns now correctly holds 1766 gold in addition to the random level amount. Open spells, Fenric's Welcome and the Unwelcome Guest now have magnitudes of 80 and 20 as opposed to 50 and 12 respectively. Way Shrines and 9 Divines Altar Blessings, as well as spells used to give the bonuses of Blood Fountains and Ayleid Wells, are now flaggable immune to spell absorption, ensuring the player cannot restore mana for free by absorbing the positive spells. Note from the first mate Filch can correctly be picked back up and taken into inventory after thrown out. Whoops. Guards in the Green Emperor Way district of the Imperial City can now be talked to about the Imperial Palace. Now, as far as bugs that were introduced, the big one here, I think, is Oblivion gates may prematurely appear around Cyrodiil before Find the Air is completed, though sometimes only the map marker will appear. Anything that says Bethesda confirmed here is that Bethesda knows that it exists and it is hopefully part of a future patch. You can track it on their website to be notified when this is patched. So it's worth noting, a lot of these have usually some sort of thing that Bethesda's aware of, and hopefully those are all fixed. But these are all the bugs that were introduced, which is quite a few. And now we're into gameplay. So here are a lot of the bigger things that have happened. So with gameplay, we have character creation. References to gender have been removed from character creation, with female and male body types having been renamed to type 1 and type 2, respectively. The stats that were formerly determined by gender are now assigned through choosing a location origin for a character, the options of which differ for each race. The left-hand option reflects the male stats in classic Oblivion, while the right-hand option reflects the female stats. In-game dialogue still uses the gendered pronouns and forms of addresses, sir, ma'am, brother, sister, depending on the selected body types as in classic Oblivion. This is nice because if you wanted to get a certain stat bonus, you would have to either play male or female. And if you didn't want to play that gender type, then that would just kind of like, oh, fuck, I don't want to do that. I'll go to a different race. Now you don't have to worry about it. You just simply select an origin. Characters can now have their facial hair with a wide variety of styles available. Additionally, many NPCs in the game now sport facial hair, as one should. Many new eye, hair, and skin makeup hair tone options have been added. All eye options are now available to all races, and you can see some of the most disgusting faces you've ever seen while playing Oblivion Remastered. Eye and hair options no longer have names, with the player selecting an icon from the list instead. Every NPC face in the game has been redesigned. Some remain visually faithful to their original appearance, which is horrible, while others have been radically changed, no longer resembling their look in classic Oblivion. It doesn't matter, they still almost look entirely horrible. A lot of the main characters, they look good. Or the guy in the Dark Brotherhood, the leader of the Dark Brotherhood when you join the Dark Brotherhood, he looks great. He had a real good update. But a lot of them are like, oh no. For general here, achievements are available to PC and PlayStation players. Just know though, so this is a big one. Using console commands will disable the ability to earn achievements, and affected save files are indicated with a broken trophy icon. What you should know here is that if you do this on a save, so your saves are broken apart by character, and I'll get into that in a little bit. It's just further down in this list. So they're broken apart in each individual character. But if you use the console and you are on a specific character, loading anything else breaks your trophies or your achievements. Do not, if you have a save that you want to go, okay, here's my hard save, and then I'm going to open the console and test some things. You need to close the game again, open the game back up, delete that save that you did all your console commands on, and just to be sure, close the game again and open it back up, and then you're good to go. You can download a mod that does turn achievements back on. Hopefully they patch this, but you have the ability here to open up the console, break your achievements, and then load a save. You go, okay, I did my console fun. Let me jump back to a serious playthrough. And then it shuts off the achievements on that playthrough too. So you have to make sure you delete the console save before you do any of this, or just download the mod. So big heads up on that. You can now move slowly while over encumbered, just like in Skyrim, instead of being frozen in place. And as in Skyrim, you are unable to run, sprint, or jump while over encumbered. You also cannot dodge, power attacks, shield bash, or fast travel. All downloadable content from Classic Oblivion is enabled by default, with no ability to disable them outside of modding. As a consequence, some content only present with the DLCs is inaccessible. This includes unique dialogue with Dominator, Jirish, Laurel Fear, and Travalia, who in Classic Oblivion are all killed once Knights of the Nine is enabled. Third-person view has been reworked. The camera now sits over your shoulder, and you can now move independently of the camera's direction. First-person view while riding a horse has been removed. You are now always viewed in the third person. Staying at inns and taverns will replenish the food generated on the tables. A new help menu has been added with guidance on a wide range of topics explaining the game's different mechanics. Harvestables can no longer fail to harvest ingredients. They also now visually change or vanish to reflect being harvested. So it used to be that they could just outright fail and that would piss you off. Not anymore. Smaller harvestables now have activator volumes, giving them a large hitbox to interact with instead of requiring precise precision on the cursor. This was really true of a lot of the smaller herbs, where they were just small little tiny plants. You'd have to really get down there and try to find it. Oh, there it is. And you go ahead and activate it. This now has a much bigger hitbox. Way shrines and the 9 divine altered blessings, as well as effects of blood fountains and aliens, are now marked as lesser powers and active effects as opposed to regular spells. Old Roy cheese is no longer marked as a quest item. Thank God. Settings. The main menu now separates save files by character. I was talking about this earlier, right? So here's how this works. So if you're an OG, you know that you want to make a hard save right before you exit the sewers. This won't create a new character file for you. Note that a new section of save files is only made when starting a new game from the prison. If a save file before exiting the sewers is used and the character's name is changed at the sewer gate, subsequent saved games on that character will be in the same section under the character's new name. The old name will not be maintained as its own section. So it's really, really like convoluted. It's just kind of worth noting that's how this works though. It is now possible to create a quick save. You can press F5 if you're on a PC. A new setting has, it's in the next thing right here. A new setting has been added to enable or disable autosave on loading screens, consistent with modern Bethesda Game Studio releases. The game also now has 5 autosave slots per character. For the first time, FOV field of view can now be modified in the game's graphic settings. Console players can now bind quick save and quick load to the controller, which is cool. Difficulty is now set with fixed tiers, like in Skyrim, instead of as a sliding scale. Available options are Novice, Apprentice, Adept, Expert, Master, matching the ranks used for skills and difficulty options in Skyrim. Like I've said before, we've talked about this, but Expert, I think, is 3x, and Master, I know, is 6x damage, and you do 1/3 or 1/6 damage. So just know those things, they're really hard. Locations: the door in the unmarked cave that required a non-existent key has been changed to have a very easy lock, making the dungeon now legitimately explorable. The open wall leading out of bounds an unmarked cave, mazeway, and the rock wall that only opens from the wrong side an unmarked cave, Black Queen's Hall, remain. However, meaning that jumping up through the hole in the ceiling in the first zone will still be necessary to access the boss chest and to explore last room in the final zone. If you don't know about this cave, you're brand new, don't worry about it. Beldeburo and Mingo Cave are modified in the deluxe edition for use in the quest for the exclusive items. NPCs can now repeat their unique initial greetings when engaged in dialogue. Several greetings that were unused or rarely used in classic Oblivion have now been heard more prominently. Renaline is now a dark elf, not a high elf. This is due to her involvement in a new quest which required new voice acting and dark elves actually receiving new voice work as opposed to high elves who reused the lines from original release. Rena Burion's dogs, Bailey and Kazune, now have distinct fur coats instead of the standard dog appearance. Bailey is now pure brown and Kazune now pure white. Vampirism is cool, so it's got a whole change and overhaul, so it looks a lot better. You don't look like a haggard, like kind of like aged individual. Your eyes change as you go through the stages, and it looks really cool. Unlike in classic Oblivion, brows and cheekbones are not pronounced, and there are no difference in appearance regardless of vampire stage. Attribute bonuses and weaknesses remain the same. You can have like really cool, like you have like dark circles, and you get like pale, like red eyes almost. You kind of look like a Sith. It's really sick. The vampire eye color from classic Oblivion is available as one of the many eye options in character creation and can contract porphyric hemophilia while already a vampire. The calculations: the max health formula has changed. Strength now affects max health. We talked about this earlier, but at a rate of 0.66 per point. Endurance effect is slightly reduced, 1.33 per point, and the health bonus from leveling up is now affected retroactively by the endurance adjustments. Increases to max magicka by means of fortify spells or equipment, fortify intelligence and magicka, no longer indirectly increase magicka regained per second, so the regen. The max fatigue formula has changed as well. Strength and endurance no longer affect max fatigue, while agility's effect is slightly increased, plus 1.33 per point, and willpower's effect is significantly increased to 2.66 per point. Fatigue now recovers at a rate of 24 per second, and running no longer affects the fatigue recovery rate. I guess it could be a possible bug. Sprinting drains it very fast. Magicka regeneration is now a constant value determined solely by your willpower instead of percentage of your magicka determined by your willpower. The increase in regeneration per point of willpower is exponential, meaning every point of willpower is more impactful than the last. At 100 willpower, you regenerate somewhere around 11 magicka per second, while at 200 willpower, you generate around 40 magicka per second. Finding the exact formula will require more testing and data mining. So that's how all those things work now. Moving into the HUD, the game features a redesigned HUD resembling the layout used in Skyrim. Vitals, health, magicka, and fatigue bars are laid out across the bottom of the screen and are now are only visible when these stats are diminished or actively changed. The compass is positioned at the top center of the display. Your equipped spell and weapon are positioned in the lower right corner, and active effects are positioned in the lower left. Icons appear next to vitals to indicate broken armor or weapons and when you are over encumbered. A progress bar is now displayed in the upper right corner of the screen when increasing a skill to denote your progress towards reaching next level. God, it's so funny that I thought that was there. It's like some of these changes I thought were like, oh yeah, it's always been there. It's not, because I'm just so used to Skyrim. The sneaking icon now functions similar to Skyrim, with the eye gradually opening or closing to reflect NPC detection. It used to just be open or closed, I believe. It was a little golden one. The name of a nearby location is now displayed below the compass when looking in its direction, as well as the distance and steps, which is a really nice quality of life change. Similar to Skyrim, entering a location now displays its name in the center of the screen, and discovering a location display an additional discover text below the name. Map icons can now be filtered to specific types. Items highlighted by the cursor now display a soft white outline. Empty containers now display text to indicate they are empty when hovering over a cursor. Loading screens have been completely redesigned and feature new artwork, but in similar hand-drawn style to classic Oblivion's loading screen. Script effect is now represented with its own icon instead of using the same icon as burden. For the menus, the main menu visual, originally the map of Cyrodiil, has been changed to a scene depicting the hero of Kvatch in front of a burning Oblivion gate outside of Kvatch, which you've seen because you booted the game up. Menus have been redesigned to adapt to modern displays, but retain the same general journal aesthetic as classic Oblivion. The yellow background tint is no longer present. The pause menu and journal are now part of a single interface that can be easily navigated between, instead of being entirely separate menus. The inventory no longer splits items into subcategories. They're now all grouped together in their parent categories. It's nicer because you used to have to kind of like click through little icons in the lower left. Like, okay, you click like your spell icon, that brings up your spells. You click your weapon and that brings up your inventory. And you kind of had to memorize which was what. You click the compass and that was the map. It was self-explanatory, but it was also kind of clunky. And you could find yourself doing a lot of misclicks, clicking between menus. You're like, oh, I just want to get to this one menu. So it's a little bit more streamlined now. Both your and merchant's containers inventories can now be viewed at the same time when opening a container or an NPC's inventory. It is displayed on the left side of the screen, and your inventory can be toggled to open on the right. When bartering with merchants, your inventory is displayed on the left side of the screen and the merchant's inventory on the right. One thing I wish it did add, though, is showing you what your weight is while you're looting something, so you can see if you can actually even put it in your inventory before doing it and then finding out after. In the inventory menu, an expanded details panel can be toggled to display to the right of the menu. One tab shows the item stats as well as a 3D preview of the item, which can be manipulated to inspect it, just like in Skyrim. A second tab appears for magic and alchemy items to display their effects. In the inventory menu, you are able to sort items by an alphabetical order, monetary value, or weight. Weapons can be sorted by damage, armor, and can be sorted. By damage. Armor can be sorted by armor rating, and items with durability can be sorted by this statistic. Iconography and artwork in the interface has been redesigned, staying faithful to the original designs. Many item icons are the same as in classic Oblivion, but have been visually enhanced to improve quality. Many other items, including all armor and weapons, have new icons. See the icon section. We took a look at those already. The active quests and current quest tabs in the journal have been merged into a single quests tab. The active quests always appear at the top, with a divider separating it from the current quests available to you listed below. The local map has been removed. The local map is now only accessible by zooming fully into the world map, or through a button at the top of the zoom bar, and is no longer the map view that is shown by default. It's still just as janky as it was before, but you just have to super zoom in and you'll get access to it. It's just not that great. In exteriors, some elements on the local map are now lightly colored instead of always appearing monotone. Localization has had some improvements here. I don't really care about that as much. Like open spell effect is now called open lock. Like localization is not as huge if you're playing in English. The interface for the persuasion minigame has been redesigned with distinct colors to denote a character's action preferences. The colors are gradually revealed during the first persuasion attempt and are fully shown in subsequent attempts. So it'll show you whether they like or dislike something, and it'll be gray if you don't quite know yet. But as you push through it, you'll get 2 green and 2 red sets of bars. The setting to toggle the display of the crosshair on or off has been removed. UI text and cursor size can now be adjusted between 3 different size settings. The dialogue camera view is further zoomed out compared to classic Oblivion. A new setting has been added to use the standard camera view instead, functionally similar to Skyrim. However, unlike that game, all action in the background will still be paused during dialogue, regardless of the setting used. Controls. Menu shortcuts have been added to the D-pad for controllers. So up is character menu, left is magic, right is inventory, and down is the map. Custom map markers on PC are now pinned by simply pressing the right mouse button on the map instead of holding shift. Items are now grabbed by holding the assigned take button over it instead of being a separate button. So if you have, like on the keyboard, I think it's like E to pick up, you hold down E and that will pick something up and you can move it or throw it around the game world. Graphics, the Oblivion Remastered isn't in is in Unreal Engine 5, which is not always awesome. Most models and textures in the game have been redesigned for the Unreal Engine. Most female armor pieces have been replaced with the male versions, and the zombie corpse model now appears wearing pants. A new dynamic lighting system has been implemented, and reworked visual effects have been added for combat and magic. So a lot of spells look entirely different too. Restoration magic now uses varied visual effects. For example, restore health is golden, restore fatigue is green, so on and so forth. Cure spells are blue. Fortify spells vary from golden to blue to green to orange based on the type, instead of all types of restoration spells being white-blue. The visual effects used for the Shade of Revenant is much more intense, red instead of purple, and is clearly visible from a distance. A canvas weave texture is overlaid on the screen, and a watercolor filter is applied when inside of the painted world, which is kind of cool. A new blood splatter effect, a low health vignette, and a camera motion, also known as the bobbing effect, have been added. All these effects can be enabled or disabled in the gameplay settings menu. Distant terrain has been reworked, with the surrounding mountains generally being taller and more imposing than in classic Oblivion. Okay, so that's not just me. The throat of the world is visible when looking beyond the border between Cyrodiil and Skyrim, which is really cool. Various landmasses with ruined Oblivion gates can be seen in the distance in the plains of Oblivion. LODs have been updated, making certain structures that could not be seen from a distance in classic Oblivion, such as Frostcracked Spire, now always visible from afar. Load on demand, I think LOD was. An aura is visible at night above the northern border between Cyrodiil and Skyrim. Looks like the northern lights. It's really cool. Lip sync animations for an NPC dialogue use an entirely new system. New environmental visual effects have been added to enhance the location, such as insects flying around outside and small fish swimming through water. Doors and containers are now visually animated when opening them. The entrance to the Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary no longer has its distinct red lighting effect. The relief on the door itself also now depicts a 6th and 7th child of the Night Mother, contradicting existing lore. Numerous items have been redesigned. The Mythic Dawn robes more closely resemble their design in Skyrim. Bloodborne Helm now uses a design from Bloodborne Helm Creations kit in Skyrim. The Helm of Ornn Bearclaw now uses the same one from Skyrim. Ruin's Edge, previously a unique Darkbow, now uses a design from the Ruin's Edge creation in Skyrim. The Claymore variation of Shadowrun no longer shares the same model as the Dragon Sword of Lane Lyn. It now shares the same model as the Daedric Claymore, like in the Shadowrun creation for Skyrim. That's kind of shitty, because the Dragon Sword of Lane Lyn is one of my favorite swords in the game. Bound weapons now have a blue glow around their model, distinguishing them from normal Daedric weapons. I actually think the Dragon Sword of Lane Lyn, I think it's an elven sword. Someone correct me. Some enchanted arrows that were previously using icons and meshes from iron, but were marked as dwarven, and their editor ID have been changed. Not as too big of a thing. In audio, while all the original voice actors are present, many additional voice types have been added. Certain characters have been recast with these new voices, and every race gender combination now has a unique voice type. Dremora females are now fully voiced after being mute with no assigned voices in the original version of the game. Many new sound effects are all used in the place of original sounds. A new sound effect now plays when discovering a location. New environmental sounds such as bird song or owl hooting, have been added to enhance the soundscape of locations in the game. Voices and sound effects now have acoustics. Sound effects in the lockpicking minigame have been made more distinct to make it easier to tell what a tumbler is set in place. I don't agree. In OG Oblivion, it was pretty obvious to tell when a tumbler was good. In this one, you have to really listen. If you knock the tumbler a bunch of times up, you'll hear it'll be a slightly lower pitch when the tumbler's locked in place, or set to be locked in place. It's really gnarly. A crackling flame sound effect has been added to the main menu to reflect the new key visual. Chapel bells on the hour can now be heard further away from the chapel entrance rather than only when standing extremely close to the doors. However, the sound can only be heard when within a certain distance of the chapel and abruptly cut off when moving out of range. For technical, modding for Oblivion Remastered is not officially supported just yet, so we won't go into that. The Unreal 5 Engine console tool replaces the Oblivion console tool as a legacy support for the OG commands, so you want to use them, you can. And instead of being hard-coded in ESP and ESM files, all names, descriptions, book contents, message boxes, book of text, and other strings now have a string ID. So if you are into modding and you know about all that stuff, that is there for you. I don't. I'm not that smart nor that clever. At that, it brings our video here to a close. So this is an exhaustive list. It's the master list. It's all the things that I could find that have changed in Oblivion Remastered. Again, this list is set to grow. There's going to be little things that we find, more bugs that have been introduced, things that have been fixed, and what have you, since Bethesda hasn't released a massive change log of every little thing that's been done. And if you notice something that wasn't on this list, go ahead and let it be known in the comment section below. A lot of people requested this huge master list, so I wanted to do it here for you guys. Again, it's me just reading off the entire thing, right? With some ad-libbing here and there. So hopefully this was great to read while you are at work. Maybe you're pooping. Who knows if you're sleeping? One of all those three, who knows? But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.